Right Pack Radio, a podcast produced by Winding Trails Media for writers by writers.
Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack.
The following episode is dedicated to the now late actress and author Carrie Fisher. Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host, David Allen Lucas, author of Crazy Things and the producer for Right Pack Radio. And with me today is my lovely co-host.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Kayembe. I write paranormal romance under the pen name Kaseka and Vita, and my short story, You Will Always Have Family, is coming out in Nightmare Magazine in March.
Congratulations.
Yay!
And also with us today is returning new member actually of Right Pack.
I've been promoted to member, and I promise I'm not kidnapped. This is James Young, author of an unproven concept, as well as the alternate history novel Acts of War.
Excellent.
Yay!
I'm Chanel. I write sci-fi and fantasy.
My name is Jennifer Solzer. I'm a children's book author and illustrator. In addition to Kathleen's story coming out in March, my first fantasy novel, Threadcaster, will be out digitally at the beginning of March, and the official launch party date is March 25th. If you're in town, come join me at Mainstream Books in St. Charles. It'll be a good time.
Fantastic. And I want to come back here to Chanel real brief. Also been promoted to regular member instead of just guest member of the Right Pack.
It was a fast track up.
And hi, I'm George Soroy. I am the Vice President of the Missouri Writers Guild. I look forward to seeing you at the Missouri Writers Guild Annual Conference from May 5th through the 7th at the Holiday Inn Executive Center in Columbia, Missouri. I am also an author of science fiction for the young adult reader. My novel Excelsior will be re-released by Aluris Publishing in April of 2007. Its sequel, Ever Upward, Part 2 of the Excelsior Journey, is expected to be released in May of 2017 under the same publisher. And my 5-part serial From Parts Unknown will be released later in this year under my own publishing, my own banner, in 5 separate books in both ebook and paperback, and soon to be in audiobook.
Excellent. And before we get started, I need to throw out some stuff that's going on with myself. First off, on January 21st, which this episode should air before, Brad Cook, who is not with us today, and I will be doing another writing the fight scene and sword fighting demonstration for the Missouri Romance Writers Association. That's going to be in Creve Coeur. I'm sure if you go to their website, you can get some more information on where, when, and what it would cost to attend. Also, too, in March, I will be at the Webster Groves High School's All Right doing All Right Writers Conference. They do this for kids. They have writers come in and talk. I think there's a couple of other people who are going to present.
I've been approached, but not confirmed.
Okay. I've been told I'm confirmed, and they want me to do something on writing and martial arts. So,
Writing the fight scene again?
good. Actually, I found my old... Jen, you might remember this because you were a member of the St. Louis Writers Guild at the time. When my fellow black belt and I did... Fellow black belt, Claudia... Now she's married. Claudia Miller. Used to be Claudia Brooks. And I did self-defense and writing the fight scene.
Oh.
So I found that old presentation, so I'm going to do some variation of that. Which, by the way, will launch into webinars later on this month. That will be coming out. And finally, don't forget, St. Louis Writers Guild is presenting with various other literary organizations in St. Louis. The Sisters Against Crime, Missouri Romance Writers, St. Louis Poets Association, and the St. Louis Press Club are doing Gateway Con. For the commercial at the end of it will appear again, as it always has been, at the end of the show. But for more information, go to www.stlwritersguild.org, and you'll see on the left-hand side, Gateway Con. click there for more information and find us on Facebook and Twitter, and I think we're on all social medias. That's what I get. I'm heading it, but I get to delegate. So anyway,
I've taken control of the Tumblr account. So
thank you.
We're going. It used to just be every now and then look at episodes here, and now I'm trying to upload every week. So
Yay.
The Tumblr account is actually up to date starting the new year. So there you go.
Oh, you mean Right Back Radio's Tumblr?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Okay, afterwards I'm gonna give her a big hug. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, enough of that kind of talk, and let's talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is online writing courses. Are they good? Are they useful? Are they just ways to have people scam money from you? I think that's always going to depend on where you're going for those courses. And I'm going to throw out there, I have taken a couple courses from screenwritingu.com. They've been useful for me, and I am taking... Starting this month, I think I've shared this online already, that actually a few days after this recording is done, I am actually losing my full-time job, and I'm getting paid for a year off, yay. I'm taking advantage of that time and writing the living daylights out of myself. So
I still like to call it Harper Leeing.
there you go, I like that. Well, I decided to really go down the crazy track. And I am doing, in the first quarter, 5 creativity courses, because one is really not a writing course. One is a creativity course given by Bob Baker, who has been on the show a few times. He is a huge creativity and marketing guru of how to get out there. Look him up. Also, 2, I will be doing, starting on the week of Martin Luther King Day, that week I am doing a course through Screenwriting U called The Profound Screenwriter. And then I'm going to Gotham Writers. That one starts on the 16th. The Gotham Writer starts on the 17th as writing dialogue.
Nice.
Then, if that wasn't insane enough, on Valentine's Day, the other courses will be done by then, yay. But starting on Valentine's Day, I am doing a double header course through Gotham. And that is writing science fiction and writing mysteries. Those are 10-week courses. I'm insane. I admit it.
That sounds like fun.
Yay! I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks so. But I'm looking at this as a way to really break the rust off, and I'll be writing anyway, but still.
Well, it makes a difference if you're someone who thrives in a classroom setting versus someone who stresses out in a classroom setting.
Well, and here's the other aspect of writing courses, not the online, but writing courses. I don't know about you guys. I'll let you guys answer this yourself. But when I went through high school and college and took writing courses, this is no affront to those who taught it. It just, I didn't get much out of it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the courses themselves did have little critique groups in them. And the critique groups are what turned me off of critique groups in general.
Oh, this sounds like a poorly managed.
Yeah, it was poorly managed. But beyond that, that's why I haven't gotten anything really good out of the college and regular education system. Not trying to ding it, just wasn't connecting with me.
I'm going to share just a quick story that I had read about, and then that will also tie into what I've dealt with in my own history with the writing classes. One of the greatest screenwriters ever out there, William Goldman, made a point to talk about in his book Adventures in the Screen Trade, and also in the sequel, how he had taken writing courses in I believe at that point it was college. And he said that there were all these different people and everything that would basically turn around their writing assignments overnight, and then they would hand it in and wind up getting an A. And he made a point to say that there were a lot of people there that would get A's and B's. His was the only C. And he would go on to earn 2 Academy Awards for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and All the President's Men, and write one of the most beloved stories of our time, The Princess Bride. Mm-hmm. So, that's one thing to keep in mind, and that was always something that I would hold on to, almost like a life raft, when I would reflect on my time when I took a creative writing class when I was in high school, and I wound up getting a D in it. And it was one of those things. kind of like what you had said, David, how the way that the class was put together just did not jive with the kind of storytelling that you like to tell.
I've always found with those things that you've got to do some research on a teacher, and you also have to see. It's kind of like you would not take a master pilot's course from someone who had flown from an Eastern Bloc nation and had crashed multiple aircraft. It's one of those things where you have to look at the credentials of the teacher and say, who would you be to teach this course? I've tried to, as part of the marketing thing, also as part of the general just giving back thing, I've tried to do things like contact different colleges and say, hey, here, I'll come talk at least about the self-publishing gig and everything else. I mean, I'm no guy who sat there and, I know a gal who, her first book was published last December. As of this December, she sold 300,000 books. I'm not her, but, I've done decent. And you don't even get a response back where it's like, oh, it's self-publishing.
Yeah.
Okay. That to me, and I almost want to write all their students and say, this person is stealing your money.
Yeah.
Because they think the only way that you can get published is through traditional publishing. And you can sit there and give any agent or anybody in traditional publishing sodium pentothal, they will tell you, you have a 0.1% chance of making it. You can be the best author possible, but.
And just real quick, after the last recession we had, I'll turn this over to you next. After the last recession we had, we went from, 7 or 8 big houses down to 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, now we're down to 5, yeah.
Yeah.
And with those 5, I think at least a couple of them are on life support.
Yeah, I think you're right, and some of them made some very questionable acquisitions recently that are set. I'm tap dancing around it, but made some very interesting choices that have set off a lot of writers and readers of like, we're not going to read any more of your books. So we'll see what happens.
Just going back to the idea of writing classes in college. I've taken a few myself, and it really, in that atmosphere, you don't really have the ability to say, well, this teacher, particularly, a lot of the times they're grad students that are writing themselves at the same time. And also that leads into the idea of a big topic, in my opinion, the idea of the creative writing MFA that people go and spend tons of money on for this 0.1% chance that they'll actually be able to quote unquote make it. So
You're done, Tim? Go for it.
Yep. I forgot about, I'm glad you mentioned that. That goes far, I was thinking mainly the online, but also if you're doing it in person, definitely that is true. Look at the school. Usually if you had to go through a couple of layers, and it might make some people uncomfortable, but you ask how many contact hours are taught by the professor versus taught by the TAs. I'm in the middle of getting my master's, or my doctorate myself, and I know that several of my fellow students teach a large portion of different classes in the history department. I know I have 2 friends who have masters or MFAs or creative MFA. They also teach, and they are at a small college. They have a lot of contact hours, but they talk about colleagues who, okay, they're on the masthead. This person's done this many books. They've done all these other things, and this person, out of your entire course, you will see them the first class, and you may see them the last class, and the rest of that you're going to see the other graduate students.
Right. Real quick, and then I'll turn it right over to Kathleen, and that is, remember too, whenever you're looking at a class, especially this is more face-to-face than online, especially the MFA programs, remember that there's a lot of them that have a certain biasness in their writing style. It's more academic, even if it's fiction, it's academically aimed versus commercial aimed. There's still a huge fight between those two parts of the industry for whatever reason, because guess what? They both can learn from each other. And they really need to.
Same in history.
Exactly.
Versus popular versus academic history.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it dovetails into what I wanted to talk about a little bit. I have taken writing courses in college, in high school. writing courses that were taught at colleges but were not necessarily for school, and writing courses, writing workshop, Clarion specifically, that's not for grades. The best experience I had was at Clarion, because unlike with writing workshop courses in college, there wasn't a bias toward literary fiction. I did have a writing workshop course at school where the teacher and the entire class had no familiarity with fantasy or sci-fi. It was a horrible experience. But as Chanel pointed out, you can't choose the teachers. And if you don't know anything about them and you get into class the first day or the second day and then you realize it's a little late. However, if you're going to take a writing class, I feel like it's easier to look into things like this online, but like what kind of class is it? Is it going to be a workshop format? Is it going to be like, how much teaching is the teacher going to be doing? Because with certain workshops, you can learn a lot just by critiquing and reading other people's stories. But like, is someone leading the class and pointing out different things in people's writing that is then turned into a lesson? Like, if you're taking a class, you want to know that you're going to be learning new things, not just workshopping, I would think.
Yes. One of the things that I wish that I had known going into that kind of atmosphere was the idea that a lot of people, specifically in that sort of academic atmosphere, really kind of look down their noses at popular fiction, and specifically sci-fi and fantasy. Genre writing in general seems to be very snubbed, and I've been in classes and they've literally told me, you can't write anything from genre for this class. And if I had known that going into the class, I would have taken the class. But once again, you don't know the teacher. Some of them don't even announce the teacher until the week before the class actually starts.
That is something that I like about reviewing teachers that is now available on the internet.
Everyone is talking about, hey, you're doomed in this class. I was a production major. I wasn't taking creative writing as a course. I was taking creative writing as an elective. And it's important, I think, to note that I showed up to my first and only creative writing course that I signed up for, and they said, you aren't going to write anything until the second quarter. The first quarter, we're reading The Great Gatsby again. And I said, thanks, bye, and went and took a computer course instead. Because you can just drop a course if it's not required for your major. So, just wanted to throw that anecdote out there.
I was kind of in the same boat as Jennifer, because I was a theater major in college. With a concentration in acting, but it was really during high school. That's when the writing bug really kind of took over more than I mean. The acting was always there, but trying to think, the urge to write and everything really kind of took off like during late high school into college. And I do have to give my my writing for television teacher a whole lot of credit, Susan Shapiro Barish, who still is around and everything, and she has actually kind of made her bones in writing nonfiction, self-help types of books, and you can get lucky sometimes with teachers, because she not only understood that my focus was on science fiction, but she embraced that and really encouraged me for me to continue on with it. And so when I left and wanted to be in during my last semester at college, that I took this particular class, and I wound up leaving more confident in my writing ability than I ever thought possible, and it was because of her.
I would say with the to go with that, what I've heard with because I swear I've heard that name before, but I've heard with the good teachers going also with what Kathleen said about the online, is that you can find now with Google, there's Rate My Professor, everything else, you can find information about teachers, and I would say that I usually don't do absolutes, but if you are, I haven't been in academia now for quite a bit, if you're sitting there and it's the last week before a class and they still haven't identified the teacher, that right there is a grab the yellow and black striped handles, pull down firmly, and brace for the ejection. Get out of Dodge, run for your lives. Gojira is coming down Main Street Avenue. I mean, that this is not going to be organized at all.
I do want to say that I have had great writing workshop classes in college as well. That one particular class stuck out to me because I had never before had a writing teacher who was so oblivious to the type of fiction that I wanted to write. So writing classes in college can be great. And I know someone who's TAing writing classes while she's getting her doctorate, and she's really passionate. So a lot really does depend on the teacher. But something else that I think is important to think about with writing classes that you would take, in person or online, is when you're taking a class in school, your grades, you're getting graded on what you're doing. And that immediately puts pressure on you to do a certain kind of thing, to do the kind of thing the teacher will understand. And that means you don't have the creative freedom that you might in just a writing workshop. The other thing is, people who go into a writing class voluntarily versus because it's a requirement, that has a lot to do with how the class proceeds as well. So if you self-select into a class, like I self-selected into Clarion, and so did my classmates, we all wanted to be there. We all were willing to pay to be there, and we all were willing to take time out of our lives to be there. Like, we were dedicated, we weren't messing around. That was a great experience because everybody was doing something that they thought was important. And I have been in writing classes where some people are there just because it's a requirement. You have to get it done with, and they don't put work in the same way that people who want to be in that class do. So something I found since being in school is that taking writing classes outside of school has been really rewarding because everybody wants to be there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go to something in what you said in a second. I want to share what you're talking. One thing you mentioned, and a little anecdote, and then I'm going to go into this other thing, which is you have to adjust to the teacher. In the cases of high school and college, you have to adjust to a teacher. And my degree, my bachelor's degree, was elementary education, and I was taking a course for children's fiction. I forget which one, because there was a couple classes I had to take for it. And this one, they wanted us to write a story. Now, the people who really know me, that are sitting around this table, know, even as a child, I never could write for children. I couldn't even attempt it. Mommy, I'm having nightmares.
Mommy, what's a solar plexus?
They're really not that far off of this.
And long pork? What's long pork?
There's nothing wrong with murdering people in childhood stories, okay?
Itsy bitsy spider.
Okay, actually, what they wanted, murdering someone would have been a problem.
Oh, I would have gotten in trouble.
I had to beg them to let me write, at least make it middle school age for it. And what I wrote was a short story called The White Horse. And it dealt with a kid who was an amateur detective who was breaking down a heroin ring in a middle school in which teachers and others were involved.
Wow.
You're insufferable, you know
I
that.
am. It's, you write what you know, so.
Yes, heroin, definitely.
We'll leave that there. No, I've never done drugs.
But she's not saying anything about selling them or running a ring.
Or breaking up that said ring. Anyway, but I want to go with a question to all of you. And that is, okay, let's leave college, let's leave high school and college alone for a moment. Let's talk about the online courses that really this is about. What do you look for when you do an online course? Or if you ever want to sign up for one, if you have never done one, what would you look for?
That was my question. Good job.
See, we're on the same page.
Oh, yeah.
The first thing I'm going to touch back on the point I mentioned earlier is credentials. If you're doing a course for online that you're purporting to be able to teach new authors or writers, I want to know what your credentials are as far as what have you published, what have you been tangentially related to publishing. I mean, anything that just tells me you're not just somebody who decided, I'm here to take your money.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is going to be how the course structure, is it online? Do you have testimonials? Are you somehow doing this through your means of distribution, your means of contact, and everything else? If you're using Google Hangouts, nothing against Google, but there's better things out there. If you're distributing the files through, well, I've got a Blackboard set up, maybe sort of, the server stays up. Something that tells me that you know what you're doing, and this is we're going to be 4 weeks into a 16-week course, and you didn't pay for your website, and now we're all sitting here trying to get our money out of you.
Yeah.
I've gotten Holly Lyle courses. Holly Lyle is a sci-fi fantasy writer, and she's done a lot of online courses. And the way I decided to take her course on how to write a series, which was a more expensive, more intensive course, was that I had bought previous clinics of hers that were like just PDF documents, short courses that you could do for yourself. And I liked them enough, and I saw enough good testimonials about her on her site that I was like, well, the site looks kind of rough, but she seems like a good teacher, and I like the stuff that she's done already that I've seen. So that made me decide to get her month-long How to Write a Series course, and I'm so happy I did, because there was so much content. Like, I'm still going through the content and like trying to figure out if I want to turn something into a series in particular. But like, just previous experience with that same teacher, because presumably they'll do more than one thing if they're good enough at it.
There are a couple of things that I would look for when it comes to online stuff. The first thing would be, what is it that I myself feel the need to concentrate on? Am I good at world building but not as good with character building? Am I good with character building but I'm not as good with dialogue? Am I good with plot but not as good with structure? Like, what is it that I feel that I need to kind of fill in the blanks on my own work? And the other thing that I would look at would be, along the same lines as, like a faculty and everything, what is it that this course can do for me after the course is completed? Because basically just saying like, okay, you finished your course, now you can go off and do whatever. And it's just like, what exactly? Yeah, you get the sword touched on both shoulders and everything, but you also have a bill to pay. So what is it that this course can do to give you a leg up on the competition, which is constantly growing day by day?
And especially with, I prefer the term indie published versus self-published. Because self-published still has that connotation.
Stigma, yeah.
Right. Your competition is growing. Okay, so yeah, I got a book out there. So what? I mean, you got to hunt through Amazon, assuming that's where you got it at, or Barnes and Noble, or any of the books, ways to buy books online, aid books, etc. And another thing, which I'm going with what George said a little bit, and that is, what am I getting out of it? How's it going to make me better at whatever it is I'm doing? Mm-hmm. Because while self-pub gets the reputation for this, traditional pub hasn't. Editing sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it may not, and your editor may not catch what you've done wrong. Assuming that you've edited at all. As I know some who are there are some independent published that really deserve the term self-published.
Yes.
Being, they haven't edited squat. And it's just totally nuts. Now, as far as what I would look for, and what I do look for, is sorry, I'm just suddenly having a coughing moment here. I'm trying to fight it off. And that is comments back or critique back. Yes, I don't like critique groups, but I like to have comments back from the instructor if I've gotten a good instructor to see how, and not just comments of, oh, this works, this doesn't work. I can get a beta reader to do that. I want comments that give me meat and potatoes to how am I putting the story on the bones that I'm constructing.
It's funny that you mentioned that. That's one of the things that crossed through my mind is that not only do you have, the leg up where, you can tell me this is good, but also help with, like you mentioned, finding an editor, finding a cover artist, finding things like that. Does this person have other contacts that I'm not just paying for the course? I mean, of course, I'm still going to pay for these people.
Right.
But is there something that you can give to me? And as far as when you say to me in potatoes, I would say I'd go on to this needs to be, at the end of this course, whatever you're trying to instruct me on, you can walk the dog for me on how I have grown, hopefully. Or, well, you seem resistant to this. If you're going to stick with this style, perhaps you should try this way to turn it, because obviously I cannot turn you towards the way I would do it, and that's just people have style at this stage in your life. You probably know what your style is,
Hopefully.
and that's you can't turn that ship. So instead, let me channel this in a positive way, and this is something I would look for an instructor. Thing on that is, I'm not wedded to what my mindset is. I accept people do things a different way, and I have recommendations based on others I know that do it that way.
You joining us, or I've got dovetail.
Go ahead and dovetail.
Okay, which goes back to something in which I haven't mentioned, but this goes back to the high school and college courses that I ran into, as well as some online ones I've run into. They present cookie cutters.
Yep.
I don't fit the cookie cutter. When I was in high school and college,
Running your heroin.
Yeah. What? Huh?
Running your heroin.
Yeah. I'm not gonna let that down. No, it was for the record, FBI and DEA. I actually you already know my records. You know
what am I kidding? You're watching everything I send and receive.
Okay. But when they talked about plot, all I was ever taught was a 3-act structure. There are, and now I've actually got a course I've presented as President of the Illustrators Guild and Wonder Winding Trails to different people. There's 7 different story structure plots that you can do. Now you're not just wedded to the one that we got from Aristotle. Okay? There are other ways to create characters than just the cookie cutter style. And everybody's different, and you've got to find the tool that works for you. And a good instructor can say, okay, look, obviously this is not working for you. Have you tried the A, B, C, D?
That actually works kind of well with something I was gonna bring up. When you said they present cookie cutters, was it sounded like it was a problem. And actually, I'm the kind of writer that likes to know how everybody else does things, because the way my brain functions is something will work until it doesn't. And then I have to find a new way of doing the same thing or of attacking the same problem. And then that'll work until it doesn't. And then I will have to find a new way to go at or attack the same problem. So one of the things that I love is reading books on writing, reading the way other authors do things, reading the way they basically parse stories, how they take them apart and how they put them together. I love reading nuts and bolts things. I love when in a writing course a teacher will tell me, read this, and then we're going to discuss it, and then we discuss how the writer, how the author of that story got the effects in us, the readers, that they did. So I like that courses will often present a cookie cutter method. Because I know there is no one way to do anything, but I am always looking for new ways to do the things that I do. So one of the things that writing courses do for me that I find most valuable is presenting new ways of doing something, or explaining an old way of doing something that I was doing more instinctively, so that I can now consciously change how I do it.
To me, the thing with cookie cutters, I don't want to speak for the way I understood it, is when I think of instructors with cookie cutters, it's not, here, let me tell you how to make a snowman, let me tell you how to make, a gingerbread house, let me show you how to make this, sugar cookie Cthulhu. No, it's a case of,
I want that cookie cutter. Go ahead.
Yes.
I only know how to do the nice, cat-shaped cookie cutter, and if you're not cat-shaped, you're wrong. That to me is what when I
I
think
have a
that's
hammer, and
that's
you are all
exactly-
nails,
yeah.
no matter
Ex-
what you actually are.
exactly. You know you are built like Harambe, but I'm going to teach you, how to do this ballet style of martial art. No, that's not going to work. I'm a grappler. That sort of thing. I mean, that to me is what cookie cutter is in the case of the instructor.
Exactly. And this is where I've been spoiled. I'm stepping outside writing for a moment. This is where I've been spoiled as a martial artist. I started when I was 10, I'm 47 now. You guys can do the math. My entire time of learning all my martial arts has always been one-on-one instruction. It's never been a big group instruction. And that way and reason why I like that is the way I teach as well. Yes, I do teach martial arts. Yes, I'm very careful to play pick because I don't have a studio. I don't have to actually make money doing it. So I'm very picky on who I select as my students. But that's in case, because I always get asked, will you teach me? It depends if I know you or not and what I think your reason is for wanting to learn.
Do you have fish heads? I must be paid in fish heads.
Yeah.
Kill Bill.
Anyways, I'm not gonna touch that. But where I was going with this, and this is something which I kind of like the online writing seminars that are one-on-one-ish in response. If I need to use martial arts as my template, and hopefully this goes to where I'm talking about with writing. I've got a group of 30 people in front of me. I'm painting this picture for you. And I am teaching them all how to kick using what's called a side kick. For the ladies, you guys actually have it easy to understand this because you at least, in sometime in your life, have tried high heels. Imagine kicking somebody in the stomach and what your goal is sending that nice stiletto of the heel through their stomach and out their spinal column. Yes. That is a side kick.
It's a lot of muscle.
That's really cool, but you'd have to do it at a weird angle.
I know, but it's just the illusion.
We're putting it together now. It's like, I've worn heels. Who designed these heels?
Yeah, well, I won't even go down that road. There's a reason. There's lots of reasons I'm glad I'm a man, not a woman. Women's shoes are one of those reasons. So, moving on.
We have agency to pick which shoes we want to wear.
Yeah, well, okay. So anyway, now that's really going off. But here's the thing, where I'm going with. I'm teaching 30 people how to do the same kick. And let's say everyone around the tables and in my class. So I'm focusing on George, how he's kicking, and meanwhile, Chanel is messing up the kick, not on purpose, but by the time I get to her, she has now kicked, let's say, 50 times. Mm-hmm. Okay, you've done this wrong 50 times.
No.
In the case of muscle memory, it's going to take you, I'm fudging the numbers. It's going to take you 200 kicks to correct those 50 kicks. And now that I'm focused on her so much, maybe Kathleen is doing it correctly, and now she's screwing up because she had been watching something else, or her attention's gone wrong. You can't focus as clearly, where I'm going with this, on 30 different students as you can on one to make sure it's right. And yes, that's a problem with traditional education, which we will walk away and leave alone. I'm leaving it alone. It's not even on the table.
Uh-huh.
But what I'm going with, what I'm saying is, if you've got a high number of volume of students, the instructor can't pay attention and get the corrections done. And that's one thing about good online courses. They have a narrow number usually of students that will sign up, and when that's the case, you can focus on that particular student and that student style, or getting them to make a correction if they're willing to make that correction to whatever it is that they're writing, and open up new doors a lot easier.
I have 2 writing class recommendations, neither of which I've taken, but both of which I want to because I hear such good things from people that I know. So Mary Robinette Coal teaches writing classes, and I've taken one of hers in person for an afternoon, and it was brilliant. She broke down storytelling in a way I'd never heard before, but that is true. And a friend of mine took one of her online courses, and it was amazing for her, and she went more in depth into some of the things that she discussed in the class in person. So she's a great writer, and you should definitely take her classes. The other plug I have is for Writing the Other. You can find them at writingtheother.com. And basically what they're doing is teaching people how to write people who are other than themselves. So they have classes on teaching how to write differently abled people. They have classes on teaching people how to write an African American character or an Asian American character or people from other cultures. So those people who are teaching the classes are either of those groups or intimately familiar with those groups. So it's a safe space to learn what you're doing wrong, learn how to do things correctly, and then to have your work looked at by the teachers and to discuss things with other people who are also trying to get this right. So I love classes like that. That's not necessarily teaching you how to write a better short story or how to revise or how to write a series, but it is teaching you to do the kind of research and conscious writing that I think every writer needs to do with character. So I would recommend those. Like, I want to take some of the Writing the Other classes, and I am an other from a lot of perspectives.
You're a trifecta of other.
I am, but that doesn't mean I am the other in all the ways. So I too want to learn how to write certain characters that I am not part of the group of, and I think it's really important for writers to be able to do that with empathy. Like, Chanel, was it you yesterday that I was talking to about, like, reading fiction by a man and knowing immediately that it's not... Oh, it was you today, Jen.
Yes, it was.
Would you like to talk about that post a little bit?
Oh, it was a part. It was like a it's so true, it's a joke post. It was Dear Male Writers, and then it listed things that women have read in books and in other places that made it obvious that it was written by a man. Like, Dear Male Writer, I have never admired my naked body in the mirror and talked about my breast size.
I'm clapping. I'm gonna clap to that. That's
like,
hilarious.
Dear Male Writer, inserting a tampon is not a sexual experience and never has been.
Oh, God.
Oh,
Yeah.
the heels one, though.
So these are two things
Dear
that
Male Writer, you cannot, like, a heel does not become a regular shoe when you
yes.
break off the heel.
Heels do not become flats if you break the heel off.
Yes.
Dear God.
You know, I've actually seen in television shows that trope.
Yeah.
No, that's where that trope probably got so much traction.
Yeah,
Okay.
See, that's the thing. Like, if you take classes to learn how to write these people or go into these groups yourself and talk to people, you will find out that is not how that works.
Where's this posted at?
I found it on Tumblr.
Okay, look for Tumblr. Oh, actually, wait a minute. George has it.
So yes, I have it right here. As the online person here.
Yeah.
Cassandra woke up to the rays of the sun streaming through the slots on her blinds, cascading over her naked chest. She stretched, her breasts lifting with her arms as she greeted the sun. She rolled out of bed and put on a shirt, her nipples prominently showing through the thin fabric. She breasted boobily to the stairs and tilted downwards.
Now, here's the sad thing. I've looked at various short stories from people who are still struggling to figure out why they have not gotten published. And I've seen these.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh my God.
To get us back on topic,
Please.
this kind of thing is a good reason. Well, I guess reason's the wrong word. It's something that I look for if I'm considering an online, like, a workshop. I try to find something that's very that's pointed and a special, specific kind of topic, not a general writing course. This is just me talking. I mean, I'm not saying you can't take a general writing course online, but the internet is full of so much information and so many sources. You either want to go to somebody that you know is going to tell you the truth, or go to somebody that you know isn't going to tell you what everyone else has told you and take your money. Because I've been to a lot of writing workshops in person with the Writers Guild and the Missouri Writers Guild and all the different associations and taking classes in colleges and classes in not colleges, and I've learned a lot of the same things over and over and over again, and I'm awful tired of giving people money for stuff I already know, or worse, giving me money for stuff that I could teach them because they're saying it wrong and I have to tell them so. There's nothing worse than facing a professional and realizing that you're more educated than they are.
Yes, and we've run into that.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
it just drives me nuts.
it's when I'm hunting for a workshop of any kind, specifically an online workshop, because there's an anonymity there, you know? It's not, this person was hired by the college, so they obviously must have some credentials, which is a misnomer, because sometimes they don't have any credentials at all. But it's kind of implied that there was a vetting process going on in there, as opposed to the internet, where you need to go find the evidence yourself that your instructor is teaching you from an educated point of view.
I took a screenwriting course back in 2000 or so. I think it was 2000, with what was called the New York Alternative Film School, and it was it was an online course and everything. Took it in screenwriting, and it was fun. I was glad that it was very cheap, and that I didn't have to take out any sort of loan or anything to do it. I have a very nice certificate, which I still have framed, but that's pretty much the extent of it, because really what that did was it did what kind of what what Jen was talking about, was it basically just confirmed what I already knew.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you want in your classes. You don't want, like what David said before, when you don't want the sort of cookie cutter, no feedback type of class. The object of any class, whether it's online, whether it's in person or anything, is for you to finish it in a better place than where you were when you started. That's really what it comes down to. If you are on the same level as when you started, then this course has done nothing for you.
Yep.
You need it to improve you in some way, shape, or form. It can't just confirm what you already know.
Agreed. And along with that, when you're looking at your instructors, this is one of the reasons I've held back doing webinars, creating my webinars, is I don't have any books published. I admit that. I've had short stories published. You can't find them. The e-zines went out of business. The magazines went out of business. Life happens. And they were never that big of distribution. I think you can actually find one poem or a couple poems I've published that were published by others, not by myself. And that one that really took off, surprisingly, just was good timing. And that was something on immigration, the same time that Arizona, I think it was, decided I had to do a hard line on immigration. So it was like the very next day that came out, that big law. So it just happened to hit. And I was talking about France's immigration issues. But anyway, where I'm going with this, I went off topic, is, I'm one of those people, I like to teach what I've learned. And when I do that, I'm learning it all over again. And I'm learning the deeper level. Back to martial arts. Not only do normal people never make black belt, but they always say black belt is the beginning of your journey, not the end. And it's true, because after you reach that level is where I've studied it at. When you reach that level is when you start going into the deeper stuff of what it is you've learned, and you begin to see it from a completely different point of view, and you begin to be able to teach it to another person. And even though you're giving them the original point of view, lack of way of saying it, because they're not at your level, you are learning something from them. It gives them a hope, it gives you a whole different point of view on what that technique is. Go ahead.
That's something they do in early childhood learning, actually. They'll have a child who has learned a skill, like recently learned a skill, teach it to someone who has not yet, who is in the process of learning it, and that helps both of them learn it better. And I find that that's also something that helps me when I'm with a writing workshop or critiquing someone else's work or having them critique mine. They're often able to point out something that I do, or I'll notice something that they do, and that instructs me in such a way that I am able to do better in my own writing because of that. For example, to be, that verb in its forms I was using a lot. And I realized that when a friend just circled all of the was's in a paragraph of mine, and I was like, I do use that a lot. And after that, I started noticing it in my writing and other people's writing, and I was able to pass that on to some people. So, I mean, you can learn a lot from other writers. It doesn't necessarily need to be a course. They don't necessarily need to have credentials of like high and mighty, status, but you can learn a lot from other writers. And on that note, I wanted to know, for those of us who've taken a writing course, how many of us hoped or expected to find at least one other person in that course that you could continue a relationship with as a writer, like having a workshop partner?
Oddly enough,
Like, how many expected that, and how often has it happened?
okay, I can answer that right off the bat. Most writing courses outside the Bob Baker creativity courses, which are really not writing courses, they're a different, they're the business of what it is you're doing creatively. I never expected to walk away with any type of writing partner, success partner, or whatever. In the case of Bob Baker, I now have my second success, well, that's a lie, third success partner that we're going to start talking on a 5 days a week basis on keeping us on track on the course. In the case of the other two, one I've kept we're getting back into the routine because the holidays kind of screwed it up. And the other one, well, let's put it this way, he was in my wedding. So, yeah, that
Yeah, but other than that, you guys don't talk much.
So that's that. But my reasoning why I never sought it out in the writing course ones was, well, you know, back before I was losing my job, that I really never had time to do anything, very much so. I felt kind of like a fraud. So that was me. Anyone else?
I having gone through the New York Alternative Film School course and everything. At that point when I was doing it, I never really had the collaborative spirit that that I do now. Like I'm always kind of keeping a lookout for different people or anything to write to, not write with, but at least encourage and network with, and to be encouraged by, along those lines. But during that time, there really was no connection with the other students. It was basically just it had like a sort of a one-on-one feel to it. You knew that there were other people that were in there, but there wasn't the chat room style setup like the way the current online classes now boast to have. But mine, I couldn't say I really had that.
Yeah, what are you doing? Go ahead.
Okay. Honestly, I would have to say that I always am on the lookout when I go to these things, because it's like, hey, I like to write, you like to write, we're both in the same place, hopefully we can write together. Great. Now, does that actually happen? Unfortunately, well, yeah, Kathleen, you're an exception.
That's because Kathleen's just exceptional.
That's how Chanel and I met. Cough, cough.
Yes, I was in a class. But honestly, it's there's so much that goes into it that for compatibility. I mean, it's almost like trying to find like a significant other, and when you're looking for someone that is to actually write with. So like in terms of networking, in terms of critiquing, in terms of just being there and saying, hey, you want to sit there in complete silence and write for 3 hours in Starbucks. We don't talk to each other. But
things that haven't at all happened today with 3 people in this room. Go on.
Not at all. But
come on, I talked a lot.
As Kathleen drinks her Starbucks.
I would have to say that there's so much that goes into finding that special someone that it doesn't really happen that often, because either their head's not in the same place as yours, or you don't write in the same genre, which happens a lot, or they're in the same genre, in the same headspace, but you just don't mesh. It happens a lot. There are people that I really love and respect the way that they write, but we just don't click in terms of personality to where I would want to spend 3 hours looking at the side of their face while I'm trying to write. It just doesn't work that way. So I would have to say, do I try it? Yes. Does it always work? No, and no.
Usually, I just put this caveat in. She's trying to kidnap you too?
She always tries to kidnap me. Always.
She just never stays where I put her.
This rag, it smells of chloroform again. Why?
Kathleen, we've talked about this.
I thought we were friends.
Well, and just
Just send me a text.
And just for the record, How did the Right Pack start? Hi, Kathleen.
I like writing with people.
We're really
and
just her collection is all it is.
Oh my goodness.
Menagerie.
I'm number 4. No, sorry.
This is feeling a lot more Hannibal Lecter.
I would never eat any of you because I'm not a huge fan of meat. So
No, I don't mean in a literal sense. I wasn't worried about my brain and fava beans.
you mentioned Hannibal Lecter. No, I'm a dragon, you guys, and you're all shining so brightly. I was like, mine, my treasures. Come here and let me hoard you.
And then
shoot
you keep
Thank you,
climbing
Smog.
my shoulders.
And now I
I believe in your
understand that anyone else I've recommended for this besides Rob Howell, who apparently made his mistake or his escape, is never coming out of here. So, indeed, I'm sure when this is listened to by some of my friends, they're going to be like,
We're running.
yeah.
A good dragon lets their horde out to do what it wants because then other people will be jealous of that horde or be attracted to the horde and then come closer to the dragon.
The Tau
You know
Captain
what else we
Dragon.
get from a nickname, Smog?
No, Smaug dies!
Vermithrax
The dragon
comes
from Dealing with Dragons. I will take that dragon's name. You can
Okay,
call
I
me
will
King
ask
for
you
right now, though. I wanted to say that when I went to Clarion, I went there with a different expectation than I did for other writing classes. I went there being like, all right, I'm gonna learn to write better, and I'm gonna get a lot of writing done, and I'm gonna learn to critique better, and I'm going to have like a new community of writers, and we will be a workshop when this is all done, which we are a workshop now that it's all done, and we are a community of writers. So I was like, yes, check, check, check. But that's not something that I expect for all writing classes. It really depends on the teachers and the atmosphere and whether it's online and whether you're sharing work or not. So for certain things, I expect to get like critique partners out of them. But for other things, it's just, oh, I found a person. I found a shiny. Can I keep you? Which I have said to people.
Role
Literally.
versus coercion.
I was gonna say
Natural
though,
one.
we've talked about writing specific writing classes, and there is a class that I took in school that was manuscript formatting and submission, and it was one of the most helpful classes I've ever taken because writing is a creative endeavor. It is definitely an art, but selling your writing and getting published and doing publicity and stuff, that is a business, and that is the kind of thing I don't even like thinking about. So actually when I got to Clarion, people were like, why don't you why do you have all this work that you have done nothing with? And I'm like, business. And so taking that class was really helpful. It was the nuts and bolts of manuscript formatting, how to submit, how to find markets to submit to. And those kind of classes are things that you might not necessarily have materials that you can go back to and back to and back to, but it is teaching you a skill set that you're going to need as a writer if you're going to be an author.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's something I hadn't thought about, that being for writers versus just, and to me it's one of those things that comes with the territory, but it is a separate thing to think about. And that's, I was thinking my sister is getting her doctorate. Why she basically did it because she's stubborn, because I tried to warn her. But she's actually, her master's include a whole bunch of marketing courses. And there are things that when I was first starting out with this, that she'd look at me like, okay, you're a moron. And don't get me wrong, she's my older sister, so she remembers when I ate glue. So to look at me like I'm a moron, that's been pretty much the story of our whole relationship at times. But things like, you can't see them, of course, because this is a podcast, but like my magnets, I have fridge magnets that I've handed out to everybody here. When I initially did them, they had nothing on them. They just had the picture, and that's what I was handing out when I sold books. And my sister looks at me and she says, so I've got your magnet. It's 4 months later. Your book's at the used bookstore. But I really like this magnet. But how do I know where I got this magnet from? And somebody asked me at Thanksgiving. And it's one of those things that now I look back and I want to go back in time and smack myself. But obvious stuff like that is why you need to, the business of writing, the business of marketing, and things like that. If you can find one of those courses cheaply, yes, that is an important thing to get because some of the best authors I know have trouble making book sales because a couple of them are in genres where it's just, oh my goodness, it's a Shark Tank out there. But some, it's like you look at them and you're like, well, what have you done to market this? Well, I put it up on Amazon, and I ran some Facebook ads.
And I spat into the wind, and I said a prayer, and I'm just waiting.
Yeah, and I'm so upset because this other person I know who was a mouth breather with a room temperature IQ has sold like about 200 books, and I don't understand. It's like,
Well,
Let
me walk this dog for you.
And kind of final thoughts, we're closing up and watching the time go away. That is probably one of the biggest things which I regret not having back when I went back to the high school and college things. Okay, fine, they taught me how to plot a certain way. They taught me how to make characters a certain way, maybe. I wouldn't guarantee they did that. But one of the things that I would have liked to have gotten out of it is, okay, you have this new shiny story. What should you do with it next? How do you connect to editors? Or what should you get a good beta? Who's a good beta reader? What should be expected? And that's one of the things and then of course, formatting, submitting, where to submit, how to do it. I learned that a lot on my own and eventually through St. Louis Writers Guild when I finally connected up. And that, once again, remember I'm 47, so you can do the math, I was born in 69. I didn't learn that part really connecting up until about 2008. So
I would just say with that, I know this is the final thought, but I think the self-publishing has really, or the indie publishing has really made people have to think about that, because before it was a case of, well, you're not going to worry about any of that stuff because if you're lucky and good and the stars align, you're going to go to a big press and they're going to take care of all that. All they're going to do is change up to a chair of misery style and say, hey, keep cranking stuff out. But now with independent publishing especially, oh goodness. There are people I know who have stuck with bad publisher situations primarily because the publisher would occasionally, or I guess occasionally be kind, but they would handle the business aspect poorly in my opinion. But they would at least handle it because, well, I don't want to have to worry about that. And that's the kind of thing that, once again, going back to the workshop, is if I could have the ideal writer's workshop, it would be, you would have the course would be Business 101 and Business 102. And a subtext of that would also be knowing how to spot a bad situation. Because if there's something that will lead you into shoal water as an independent author, or as going looking for a small press, you will have things where, oh, this is such a great thing, I won't have to worry about this, this, and this, and this. And you'll realize, and as I mentioned on previous podcasts, you'll walk into a situation where you will end up having to sue your publisher at a later date. And that's the kind of thing that I think that a lot of people really need, to have that cynical edge put upon them by their course, rather than going starry-eyed into something that they're going to regret later.
Totally agree. And on that note, tune in next week for yet another interesting topic on the writing industry. Have a great week writing. Take care.
GatewayCon? What is GatewayCon? The Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention, brought to you by St. Louis Writers Guild, is a new, unique experience for writers looking for their work to be either traditionally published, independently published, self-published, or to further their writing career. Coming in June 2017, GatewayCon will provide opportunities for writers to pitch their work to agents, hone their craft regardless if it is genre fiction or nonfiction, and obtain expert critiques. Get to meet vendors and experts who can help your writing get attention. And all writers get their work in front of their audience. Writers will get to network with agents, publishers, and others in your genre. Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention will be in St. Louis, June 16th through the 18th, 2017. For more information, visit www.stlwritersguild.org or look for GatewayCon on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. GatewayCon, opening the gateway for writers to reach their readers.
Did you know that Right Pack Radio has an international audience? How would you like to reach that audience in regards to your books, your book services, your author services, or more? Go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com and look under advertising for more information. If you don't have a script, that's not a problem. We will be happy to work with you. Once again, go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com for more information.
The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her.